The entire Duggar family suffered greatly as a result of Josh Duggar's incarceration. The house that had previously been a hive of activity, with children running around the halls and laughter, now become quiet. Every picture on the wall served as a reminder of what had been lost, and every nook and cranny of the house held a memory. Every morning, Michelle Duggar started her day in prayer, her hands shaking as she prayed for forgiveness. Bob believed that there must be a way to return his son home, so he spent his evenings looking for answers. The family that had previously stood for faith and togetherness was now struggling to keep those very things intact. Members in the church avoided making eye contact. Friends avoided each other. Once hailed as a model of family and faith, the Duggars were now the target of silent condemnation. The load was most heavily on Anna Duggar. She was left to raise her kids alone, and she approached every day with a calm resolve. Even though she could see the pain in her eyes, her faith remained unwavering. She remained true to her vow from years ago to support her spouse no matter how bleak things got. She carried letters, family drawings, and the unsaid hope that those walls would one day no longer separate them as she made the long weekly trek to the prison. Tears, a fake grin, and the silent walk back to the car marked the end of every visit. The youngest children in the Duggar household inquired as to when their father would be coming home. There was no easy solution. The elders steered clear of the inquiry, their silence speaking louder than words could. Holidays were nearly intolerable, prayers were heavy, and meals were unfinished. Nevertheless, the family remained intact despite the suffering. Bob and Michelle started to quietly work behind the scenes, contacting legal teams, contacting religious leaders, and enlisting the help of people who were still open to the idea of second chances. In the stillness of the night, requests were penned, letters were dispatched, and prayers were muttered. Anna was not going to give up. Her strength came from her faith. She thought that forgiveness, not denial, might bring about redemption. For the whole family, her commitment became a symbol of perseverance. Despite being criticized, questioned, and shunned, the Duggars persisted in their fight for restoration rather than for prestige. They thought that grace might be found even in the most gloomy valley. The suffering started to give way to purpose as the months stretched into years. Even though they were scarred, the family regrouped. Through unwavering trust, the once broken love started to slowly and silently mend. One fact, despite all the conflict, persisted. Hope, no matter how small, can endure even the longest storm. For the Duggars, time passed slowly. Every month that went by felt like a fresh challenge to faith, and a reminder that hope had to struggle to endure. Bob Duggar would not keep quiet. Plans started to take shape behind the closed doors of their family home. Lawyers were consulted, appeals were filed, and documents were examined. After everything had been taken away, the family that had once preached faith from church platforms was now discovering what it meant to live that faith. The criticism became louder. Neighbors muttered about the price of loyalty, online voices ridiculed the family's prayers, and news sources recapped past scandals. The Duggars, however, refused to back down. They were battling for redemption after having already damaged their reputation. Michelle Duggar completely stopped participating in public life. Her world had shrunk to her son's future, her Bible, and her prayers. She prayed for his transformation as well as his freedom, for the fallen man to rise again with grace and humility. The family's efforts were quietly strengthened by Anna Duggar. Court updates, paperwork, and raising her kids with faith instead of fear occupied her days. She made lunches, read the Bible at the break of day, and bore the burden of judgment with a quiet bravery that no one could see but that everyone could sense. Even though they were little, the kids could feel the effort. They learned faith before freedom and patience before delight as children. Dinners with the family grew quieter and smaller, but they were never bleak. Outside, assistants started to resurface. A few clergymen, longtime acquaintances, and family supporters came forward to call on the world to recognize both the sin and the potential for reform. They emphasized to everyone that mercy was given, not earned. The state received legal applications. Inside the Duggar residence, boxes and folders were stuffed with letters of recommendation, appeals for review, and testimonies of reform. Reading case files and preparing statements that could lead to one tiny step toward freedom. Bob labored late into the night. Anna kept going to see people. She never missed one, even as the years went by. Her heart remained the same despite each visit becoming colder and shorter. She waited. She had faith. She repeatedly showed forgiveness. The world had changed, but the Duggars stayed in prayer, a single family clinging to the flimsy hope that things may be different tomorrow. There were rumors that the last appeal was being examined. The Duggar house had light for the first time in years. Faint and shaky, hope returned to the features that had long since lost the ability to smile. Once more Michelle adorned the living room. For their father, the kids penned messages. Knowing that she will soon either celebrate a miracle or experience another tragedy, Anna stood at the doorway, gazing out at the horizon. The waiting started over, but it felt different this time. They have come this far because of faith. And now the final test of their faith in redemption was coming. The Duggar family had reached this point after years of waiting, innumerable prayers, and innumerable pleas. Previously silent and filled with grief, the house suddenly hummed with an odd tension. The kind that permeates every room prior to a moment that changes people's lives. Jim Bob went over all the papers one last time. The weight of hope on his shoulders caused his hands to tremble a little, not out of fear. Beside him, Michelle held her battered Bible, the pages torn from years of nightly prayers. This morning, the family hadn't talked much. It felt pointless to speak. Each breath, each look, each heartbeat was a prayer unto itself. With her kids clinging to her, Anna stood close to the living room window. Even now, her heart hurts from bearing the weight of uncertainty for so long. Beneath the fear, though, was a silent confidence that forgiveness, faith, and patience could really make all the difference. This was the culmination of weeks of legal correspondence, lawyer interviews, and meticulous testimony gathering. The neighborhood looked on in silence. The Duggar family had learnt to bear their burden in private, despite the doubts and criticism of many. Their hope was no longer controlled by the murmurs of the world. Every family member thought back on the years lost within the house. The kids, some too young to comprehend completely, had become tough. They had discovered that faith was more resilient than hopelessness, that love could withstand separation, and that loyalty could withstand condemnation. Each member of the household has their own preparatory routine. Some just closed their eyes, while others knelt silently. They all expressed the same silent hope that the long-sealed door of restoration would eventually open. Slowly the hours went by. The clock seemed to have meaning even as it ticked away. Supporters and distant family members sent letters, but they were never opened. The family was aware that nothing could take the place of the burden of waiting, and that the moment will arrive and pass in its own time. The room held its breath until the announcement eventually came. Jim Bob gently unfurled the packet. In order to stabilize herself against the tidal surge of emotion that she was unwilling to display too quickly, Michelle's palm hovered on his arm. Feeling the warmth of her children as a barrier against terror, Anna held them close. It contained succinct but indisputable words. What appeared impossible was accomplished thanks to the family's everlasting togetherness, months of hard work, and prayers. They had been redeemed. Long-denied freedom was at last within reach. At first, the tears came slowly, a release of dread, anguish, and hope that had been suppressed for so long. Grins slowly appeared, weak at first, then more robust. The kids gave each other hugs. Michelle closed her eyes and allowed herself to experience a sense of relief that she had long believed was unattainable. With a deep breath that held the weight of many restless nights, Jim Bob's shoulders finally relaxed for the first time in years. Anna experienced both the immense delight of reunion and the well-known agony of tiredness. This one moment was the culmination of years of patience, unwavering devotion, and unwavering faith. Finally, the promise that had been silently borne over countless nights came to pass. The family could immediately sense the change in their home. Even though Josh's return was still hours away, a new beginning, shaky but unquestionable, was approaching. Even the darkest chapters have been survived by love, faith, and patience. Josh's return home day came quietly and without much fanfare, but there was a lot of emotion in the Duggar household. Years of separation, hardship, and unwavering hope came together to form a single, profoundly meaningful moment. That morning, the house seemed to breathe differently. Every wall, every corner, and every picture appeared to be waiting for him. The youngsters felt that the world they had known for so long was going to change, so they walked with a mixture of joy and anxiety. Anna waited with relief and worry in her heart. This was the result of her perseverance, her prayers, and her unshakable faith. With each second that went by, the burden of years lessened a little, but the memory of hardship was still ingrained in her soul. Despite their calm exterior, Jim, Bob, and Michelle experienced the end of many restless nights and unrelenting efforts as a real weight being lifted off their shoulders. There was an underlying understanding among the whole family. This was more than a comeback. It was atonement. The air seemed to quiet as the automobile drew into the driveway. Youngsters raced ahead, their excitement unbridled but now tempered by wonder. Josh entered the house that had appeared so far away when the door opened. The years of estrangement, regret, and longing coalesced in that moment when his eyes met Anna's. The family surrounded him. Each heartbeat conveyed years of absence, and hope at last realized in the quiet yet intense embrace. As she held him close, Anna felt the burden of suffering, endurance, and loyalty melt away into the here and now. This one moment of oneness was the result of every tear shed, every silent prayer, and every sleepless night. Life appeared to return to the house. The laughter came again, first more subdued, then more confident and unrestrained. With innocent and unwavering affection, the kids held on to their father, spanning the years. Realizing that their unwavering trust had brought them to this point, Jim, Bob, and Michelle watched with hearts full. The world could sense the calm triumph of family even outside the gates. Redemption involved healing, forgiveness, and the persistence of hope in addition to freedom. Now, everyone in the Duggar family saw that love could endure even the most difficult circumstances if it was rooted in patience and faith. Even if there were still scars, there was hope for the future. With the knowledge that hardships had made them stronger, separation had strengthened their relationship, and unshakable faith had brought them back together, the family could finally breathe as one. The homecoming was more than just a return for Anna, Josh, and the entire Duggar family. It served as evidence that love, hope, and perseverance can overcome even the most difficult obstacles. Once quiet, the house now hummed with activity, and the promise of tomorrow felt bright, eternal, and unbroken in that revitalized heartbeat. Although time passed slowly, the Duggar family had at last regained their groove. After years of hardship, separation, and unwavering optimism, a new chapter had begun, one based on understanding, forgiveness, and the silent power of faith. Once filled with sadness, the house now exuded a warmth that had been lacking for a while. Without hesitation, children's voices reverberated through the once quiet hallways as they giggled. Pictures were straightened, furniture was repaired, and hearts were mending in ways that years of being apart could not undo. The entire house was a symbol of healing. Now that he was at home, Josh Duggar proceeded gingerly at first, understanding that he needed to restore the confidence. Family members who had been by his side during the storm, however, were patient with every step. This rebirth was anchored by Anna, whose unshakable faith turned the house into a haven of second chances. After bearing the burden and reputation of the family, Michelle and Jim Bob were extremely relieved. In addition to a physical reunion, their tenacity, driven by faith and conviction, had given each family member hope again. Despite being conscious of the wounds from the past, the kids discovered that love was resilient in the face of adversity. After been lived, experienced, and ultimately celebrated, the concepts of patience, forgiveness, and resilience were no longer merely theoretical. The outside world persisted in passing judgment, but the Duggars had discovered that genuine validation originates from one's own heart's steadfastness rather than from approbation. The family's journey had turned into a monument to the strength of unconditional love, the tenacity of hope, and the power of faith. Every day turned into a little festivity of family time. Simple things like a bedtime tale, a quiet prayer, or a dinner together were more highly valued than before. The once broken house now pulsed with the hope of restoration, healing, and continuation. The future shone with promise, but the past could never be undone. Redemption had been gained not only via hardship, but also by having the forbearance to forgive, the tolerance to wait, and the faith to hope for a brighter future. Hope had at last grown into light in the Duggar family's heart. A new dawn had emerged from the storms of the past, one in which family, faith, and love could flourish unhindered and unending. The story's calm conclusion, a family reunited, stronger for the hardships faced, and prepared to face the future with hearts full of unflinching faith, was found in that quiet, unwavering radiance.